Burgess here with Music Marketing TV. Today we're going to be looking at Pro MB and a technique you can use to add interest to your mixing. Sometimes when you're mixing, you're looking for ways to make something repetitive sound more interesting, and that is what we're going to be looking at today, is one of those options. And it's easier to just set it up with you. So let's just dive right into it. So here I've got a very simple example with a bit of a scratch on a vocal or some speech, and then I've got a drum loop.
Peace now.
And so we're going to be taking this drum loop and we're going to be adding some spice to it that will be available to us later if we find that, hey, we'd like a way to sort of change things up here. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add a Pro MB first. And the Pro MB's job is to create some interesting mid-side movement. So for that, I'm going to go ahead, let's just add ourselves in a filter here. We are going to change it to expansion, bring the range like way up, and let's set a nice threshold. Let's just hear what we have.
Peace now.
So this is going to create some pretty crazy tonal balances, and the idea is this isn't going to be on permanently. We're going to automate this sort of a thing on and off in parallel. And then over here, let's go ahead, let's create a bit of a dip, and let's create a bit of a bass boost, maybe. Let's try it out. So for here, we'll leave it on compression, or it's on expansion right now. We'll go ahead, we'll do some compression on that one, and we'll do some expansion over here.
Peace now. Peace now.
Okay, beautiful. So with this pretty aggressive settings here, in fact, we could bring the range up on all of these, or down in this case. And the attack and release are pretty okay. I want something that's quite responsive. And if I were, working on this in a track, then, this is going to take time to set up the settings for each band in particular. But I find 3 bands just to cover the different areas to be a pretty good setting to go with. So what we're going to do now is we are going to convert each band to mid or side information only. And this is going to make it so that if we pan beforehand, the reason I talk about panning beforehand, so we can mess with mono files, we could create these stereo images that are kind of extreme, and then we can dial it in by mixing it in via automation at times where we think that, it would sound really musical. So we're going to go over here to our first band. We're going to open up the expert panel, and we are going to come down to the stereo link, bring it all the way up. And we're going to change this high end. You see how it has an M, so it's only mid information. We're going to go to side. So this is only side information now. We'll leave this middle one. We could leave it as it is, but let's go ahead. Let's make it only mid. And the bottom end, we'll go crazy and we'll do only side. So this is kind of a weird move just for fun. Why not? It's good to just experiment every now and then. So here we go. We've got our 3 bands that are only mid side. And when we play it,
Peace now.
we see that the side, especially when you're working with drum loops in particular, doesn't have the strongest side information. You can fix this by tossing something that will add side information in beforehand, some sort of a stereo shaping plugin. Or what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a Pro Q3 and I'm going to simply pan beforehand. So the Pro Q3 is not going to do anything. I just want it for the panning. So we're going to move this around. So I'm going to go ahead, automate this, and let's keep this on the front so we can see what's going on here. And as we move the panning around on this, so this is the panning. We could go something like this. And then of course you're going to want to get a little more extreme with some of this.
Peace now.
And this is somewhere, okay, let's find that kick that's right here, and let's, make that kind of go up. Then we'll go back to the center maybe here for a second.
Peace now.
Do something like this.
Peace now.
And the more extreme you go on one side of panning or another,
Peace now.
you're going to get a more pronounced shape here. And this is where we might get significantly more extreme, bring ratios up, and the range is up.
Peace now.
As such, and we could also bring the threshold down so it actually dips into areas that it will, since we're only going to be there momentarily. So this is things we're doing, as our process is happening.
Peace now.
And you can get some cool effects this way. Now, you might say, well, whoa, geez, this is kind of like dramatically to the left or right. This is true. You have a variety of ways to deal with this. Namely, you have two mix options. So we could change the post mix here just for the amount of this effect that we get. As such.
Now. Now.
And then for the panning itself, I'm actually going to leave the mix higher on most of this. For the panning itself, you can just counteract it with some panning afterwards, or maybe you like the extreme panning the way it is. It's going to be a track by track basis. I find that sometimes having some extreme panning just occasionally can be quite nice, but it can also be quite distracting. So you could toss something in the mix that will move things back a little bit. And again, you do not have to use panning to do this. You can toss anything on there that's going to cause some extreme stereo shaping abilities, such as a delay of sorts. For example, we could go for like a ping pong. We could grab a timeless 3 per chance. So we're going to go ahead and just turn on the ping pong here. We'll go left to right, what the heck. So there's a variety of ways you could do this. And now we're tossing a delay in the mix in order to do it instead of just panning. And you have all the access that Timeless 3 brings to it. So if we bring the dynamics, bring the drive up. Some cool stuff with pitch shifting. I mean, there's a lot of options. So just a way to use the Pro MB as a sort of a stage where you can mess with far more extreme settings and dial them in to create some interesting just outcomes, as opposed to just grabbing it for like regular compression and expansion and just sort of leaving it as it is. It's kind of fun to treat it as sort of a toolbox, and then you just stage something before it that will give some stereo image for you to play with. And then you come in and you go crazy with mid-side and perhaps a way you don't typically. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and hit that bell icon for future videos, and have a blessed day.
Peace now. Peace now.